we are going to be discussing coping with constraints, change, and combating stress. So let's hop in to our agenda for today. So we will be understanding the impact of change and constraints, managing mental health and combating stress, learning ways to strengthen your workplace relationships, and then we'll do an interactive activity at the end, and then if there's time, some opportunity for questions. So before we jump in, can someone share either in the chat or unmute what's an example of a change or constraint that can happen in the workplace?
Lack of support.
Good one. Yeah, lack of support. Okay. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? Yeah, changes in leadership and organizational change. Yeah, thank you, Nicole.
Budget cuts, loss of funding.
Budget cuts, loss of funding. Yeah, I think you guys hit most of them. So yeah, budget cuts, changes in funding, hiring freezes, layoffs, implementing of new systems. Someone mentioned new leadership, understaffing, heavy workloads, and deadlines. So let's chat about before, during, and after an organizational change. You and your colleagues might experience one or more of the following effects, and we're going to divide it up first with mind and mood. So you may see an increase in anxiety connected with loss of a sense of security, competence, relationships, and loss of sense of direction and control. So that may look like a lot of worries, right? A lot of worries about am I going to still have my job? Is my job even sustainable anymore? You may be worried about, again, with all the constraints, am I even still good at my job? A lot of worry swirling around. You may experience anger, helplessness, vulnerability, and lowered concentration. In your body, you may experience muscle tension. I know personally when I'm stressed, I feel it right in my shoulders. I'm harboring all of it in my shoulders. You may experience headaches, some stomach issues, some insomnia. So again, kind of harking back to the anxiety, right? If sometimes we're up thinking about and we can't get rid of those worries, that can lead to, after a long period of time, fatigue. And then when our bodies don't get enough sleep, we can get prone to illnesses. So we may find ourselves catching a cold more easily than we normally do. How this could affect your behaviors at work. So you may see folks having some absenteeism, so needing to take off, as I mentioned, prone to illnesses. People are getting sick more, so they need to take more time off for themselves. Or we may see some increase in presenteeism, where folks are coming into work even though they are sick, and they probably should be to go home to rest. A reduced work quality, elevated stress levels, higher turnover, impaired team dynamics, and stifled creativity and innovation. Again, creativity, innovation kind of flourishes in an environment where it's pretty, stable, you know what to expect. So when that's not there, it's harder to think outside of the box because a lot of your energy is going to thinking of the worries and the changes and the constraints. Or sometimes folks they are still able to be creative, but being able to mention those ideas can be accompanied by a feeling of like, well, what's the point? There's budget constraints, we're not going to be able to do it. It doesn't really matter. You may see some changes in your work relationships, so less time to build relationships. So again, if there's a heavier workload, that means potentially more heavy workload, deadlines, so less time to maybe stop by your colleague's office, ask how the family's doing, less time to discuss and process the changes when that's what's really needed. But again, if there's more deadlines, more work, less time to be able to talk through what's going on, you may see increase in rumors gossip and complaining. Again, our brains are wired to kind of figure out what's going on, and that's kind of how sometimes our brains can try to figure that out, which can lead to frequent misunderstandings. So in environments where there is increased tension, where there's some emotional reactivity going on, it's harder to hear, like accurately hear what folks are saying. And then it's also harder to communicate accurately and effectively communicate to others because things are so tense. So again, leading to more misunderstandings. There may be an increase in paranoia and resentment, mistrust of supervisors and managers, the institution, and then vice versa, supervisors having a mistrust in their employees. And then all of this kind of accumulating to a tense and a hostile, environment sometimes, and then interaction between folks. So people are less patient. People are, at one point, they are able to give folks the benefit of the doubt. Like you get an email and there you read that their tone may be a little off. Typically, you may say, whatever, maybe they're having a bad day. But when things are tense, it's kind of harder to kind of engage with that thought. And we kind of take it at, oh no, I think they may be getting snippy with me. We may see that, those interactions increasing. So ways to protect your mental health. So noticing and responding to stress warning signs. And I think this is really important because stress can be really sneaky. A change or a stressor can happen and then months go by and we're kind of just dealing with it. And then we kind of wake up a couple of months and then we're like really stressed out. We were really in the red. We're like sit out a week sick with the flu because again, we haven't been getting any sleep. All of this compounding, but what was happening before that? What were some signs that we were kind of reaching that point? And then the activity that we'll do later, we'll do some reflection on that. Focusing your attention on what you can control. So, and again, what you can control is typically just yourself, right? You can control how you interact with folks, the thoughts that you're having, your interpretations of things, your judgment of things. And then I also want to talk through that's where you give most of your energy to, what you can control, and then potentially giving some energy to what is in the circle of your influence, right? And the circle of your influence isn't something that you have like direct command over, but you may have indirect influence over. But the outcome still lies with something else. So for example, I'm in direct control of if I want to choose to go take a walk during my lunch break, because I know being outside helps me. I'm in control, I can make that decision. And then in my realm of influences, I can ask Tanya if she wants to go with me and take a walk and enjoy a good company while I take a walk, right? But what is out of my control is if Tanya wants to come with me or not. And if she wants to come, great. If she doesn't, again, accepting that that's out of my control and then refocusing my energy back into what is within my control. I can still go outside to take a walk for myself. Boundary and limit setting. So again, we are going to be in times where there's going to be a lot of deadlines, heavier workloads. So pausing before we respond to requests, pausing before we respond to tasks given to us, and really thinking if I can give an intentional yes or no. Really thinking, do I have the capacity to either say yes? And if you need time to think about that, allowing yourself that time, whether that's taking a breath before you send that email or make that call, or if it's asking the other person, hey, can I get back to you on this at the end of today or by the end of the day tomorrow. Practicing healthy lifestyle habits, a helpful acronym to kind of think about what are my lifestyle habits is SEEDS. That stands for, so first is sleep. So maintaining healthy sleep habits, engaging in healthy sleep hygiene, eating, healthy diet, exercise, maintaining a good exercise routine, whether that looks like going to the gym, whether that looks like taking an exercise class, or sometimes what we have the most motivation and energy for is maybe just taking a walk or doing a 10-minute YouTube video in our house, doing some small amounts of stretches. Doctor's orders, so maintaining your daily prescribed medications, or maybe that means that you need to make some doctor's appointments to kind of check in with your physical health. And then self-care, which kind of falls in line with the other points of keeping your interest outside of work. So engaging in your hobbies, whether that's doing creative things, developing and maintaining supportive relationships, talking with friends, family members, and really being mindful of when the folks that you are talking to, that they're pouring into you and it's not quite like you know, you're feeling depleted after talking to them. And then avoiding excessive overworking, separating work and home. So, all of our positions are a bit different, right? Some folks can end at 5 o'clock and go home. Some folks can't. Some folks are potentially on call. So this looks different for everybody of how they can carve out not overworking, which I think is a good segue into the next point of at least protecting and using your rest periods. So not using your downtime for more work. So your lunch break is your lunch break. Whether that's taking a lunch in another building, whether that's going to go grab some food from Stamp so you can also get a walk in, or if that's just simply you can't leave your office, but you don't have to eat at your desk. Maybe that looks like sitting in the chair, another chair in your office or in someone else's office to eat. Maintaining a sense of humor and practice joy. We talked about keeping up with your interests outside of work and supportive relationships. Asking for help when you need it, and remembering that everyone is going through this change and you are not alone. Sometimes it's helpful to kind of think that like this is a big weight and burden, but this is all happening across the board. So ways to protect work relationships during organizational change. So again, like I said, when environments get really tense, we can be less patient with each other. It's harder to hear each other, communicate with each other. So using reflective listening and check understanding with others and taking sufficient time with verbal interaction. So taking your time, especially when there's important information that needs to be relayed, taking your time with those interactions, not rushing through them, asking for clarification if you don't understand something. Hey, just checking in, want to make sure I heard you correctly. Choosing the right time and place for settling a dispute with someone. So again, if times are tense, more conflicts may arise. But there's a way to navigate those conflicts in a way that even though they happen, there's still areas to repair, to rebuild, and reconnect despite the conflict happening. So being mindful of checking in with the person, asking them, hey, is it okay if I talk with you at this point in time, making it a private conversation. Ask for information and disseminate information about changes. So again, knowledge is power during times of change. We just kind of want to know what's going on. So being able to ask and then share that information. Exiting from non-productive conversations involving complaints or rumors, which are draining, anxiety-provoking, or depressing. And that's just simply when you're able to kind of hear some of this going on whether you're entering the break room and you kind of hear this, or you're in a meeting, being able to like either exit that conversation completely, or that just may sound like, I'm gonna mute myself for this particular conversation, and again, doing something to kind of pour back into yourself when that's happening. And then completely disengaging from destructive, escalating arguments. So that can sound like when that's in realms of like yelling, that lies in the realms of unproductive conversations where folks, again, it's not a back and forth of communication, just disengaging from that and rescheduling it, acknowledging and accepting our own and others' emotional reactions to change. So everyone is going to process these changes differently. Some folks want to talk it out. Some folks would rather just work through it, keep their head down. And there's no right or wrong way as we're all trying to figure this out. There's no right or wrong way, but just respecting each other through this. Apologizing after making a mistake that affects someone negatively. It really goes a long way to be able to apologize and hold yourself accountable when that happens. Again, like I said, conflicts are more so going to arise during tense environments, but again, there's always an opportunity to potentially repair and reconnect to preserve those work relationships. help and encourage those around you, and in direct, respectful ways, ask for what you need, express feelings, and attempt to resolve conflicts. Okay, this is the interactive activity I mentioned. So like I said, it's really helpful to be able to notice what your warning signs are that you are getting to a point where I cannot take this anymore. And I credit my colleague, Tanya, she created this activity. So it's helpful to think about our phone batteries, right? So when our phones are getting down to 20%, they're in the yellow, usually our phone sends us some type of notification, right? Some type of, hey, you need to go plug in your phone or else your battery is gonna die. We are similar in that we also have signs that our bodies are telling us that, hey, we need to do something because we're getting in the red. But our signs aren't as noticeable as a phone notification, right? But still being able to reflect on some of those signs are still there. So let's take a moment and think about what our signs are when we are in the yellow, and then thinking of signs that you could like see or other folks could see that you are in the yellow. So it's helpful to kind of break it down of how do your social interactions change if you're in the yellow, your energy, your sleep, your physical activity, your appetite, self-care routines, patience, focus, and organization. So for example, personally, if I know I'm in the yellow, if my hair is in a bun for 2 to 3 days, that's when I'm usually in the yellow. And that's something that I can see, that's something my colleagues could see. That usually means my self-care and my energy to do self-care is getting pretty low. Does anyone want to share their own signs or examples? Feel free to either put it in the chat or unmute. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, self-medicating increases. So we are trying to find different ways to, again, kind of manage some of the anxiety and stressors that are coming up. Thank you, John. Nadia. Does anyone's social interactions, do anyone find themselves being a little bit less yeah, there we go. I was just about to say, thank you, Nicole. Impatience at home, even at the stress of work, yeah. When we have a sustained bad days of work, we can come home and we're less patient with our partners, our kids, our family members, our pets, because we are just don't have that same capacity of energy. Well, that's good, Nicole. That's good that you can, it's always a good place to, and that actually may be a sign if you notice yourself that like, oh, I've been apologizing a lot to my kids. Maybe I need to take a second for myself. That could also be a really good sign. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about the what we discussed in the presentation or the activity? If you do want to take the activity a step further, you can also ask yourself to what are some things that deplete your battery? What are some things that keep you in your energy saving mode? So your mode where you're